Hi, this is Thomas with Digital Technologies, and today we are going to be talking about a new feature introduced in Elan 8.0 and newer called the Dynamic Favorites pages. And this allows the user to actually create their own favorites, edit their own favorites, and change their favorites selections without having to have a programmer or technician actually reprogram these in the Elan software. So let's go ahead and open up our Elan software. And you'll notice that I've got two rooms. In this case, I'm using the TiVo. Now, this is true of TiVo, DirecTV, Dish Network, so long as the service in your area actually has one of these guides created. And most larger cities and areas are using one of these larger services, so that should be available at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how to create your favorite channels. In this case, we have the master bedroom selected, and we have TiVo 1. And if we come in here to the favorites pages, you'll notice that I've got some favorites created. And we're going to go ahead and change some of those favorites, add some favorites. We're going to add another user, rename our incorrectly spelled user3, and so on and so forth. Now you'll notice that the running theme in Elan 8.0 and newer is that whatever is selected is highlighted in a blue color. So up in the upper right-hand corner, you can see there's kind of a little clock with a circular arrow around it. Let's go ahead and click on that guy, and that is going to bring up what is called our dynamic guide page. And you can use this dynamic guide to see what's on your TV channels without opening the guide on your actual cable box and see it on the TV, which minimizes your picture, and then you can use the guide there. Now, the one benefit of using the guide on the TV is that you can see what was going to come on in the future. The guide inside of Elan only shows 4 half-an-hour areas of time here, and we can't scroll forward or back to see what's coming up next. It's just going to update every half an hour. Now, while we're in this page, let's go to channel 3, Kello TV, CBS. We see that at 12:30 p.m., The Bold and something. Let's click on that, see what that is. So if we click on The Bold, we'll get a little blurb that pops up and tells us that it's The Bold and the Beautiful. And this particular episode, it might give episode information. It might just give an overall information of the show. It gives just a little bit of information here. Now, in order to get out of this box, I have to click anywhere outside of it. If I click anywhere inside of it, it doesn't do anything. But if I click outside of the box disappears. Likewise, if I click the bold again and open up my box and hit this little play button, we'll see 3 come up on the cable box on the TV, and it will change to channel 3. In the same regard, I can actually hit 3 Kello TV CBS, and you'll see that highlight as I press it. Pressing that will actually change it to channel 3 as well. Now, maybe I don't want channel 3, maybe I want the HD equivalent, because all of these lower numbers are the SD or standard definition. We want the HD or high definition version of the channel, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute. So how do I actually create these users? How do I create these guys? How do I set up my favorites? So go ahead and in the upper left-hand corner, press the 3 lines. That's kind of your universal, get me the heck out of here. And in the fashion, media is highlighted blue, so let's click on him to unselect him, and that takes me back to the main page. Now, depending on the orientation of your screen, if you're on a touch panel or an iPhone, if I flip this sideways, it gives me a slightly different orientation, and it gives me a clock as well, like you'll see on your touch panels. In the bottom right-hand corner is a clock and a little, that's the new alarm clock feature. Typically, most people use their phones as an alarm clock, but you can use the alarm clock. That's a story for another video. Below that is the little cog icon to get me into the settings pages. Under the phone, this changes ever so slightly. The alarm clock is in the upper left, the settings page is in the upper right. So let's click on that little settings cog, and that's going to open the settings. The default password for this is going to be just 1234, 1234, and that just gets the password into the settings page of your Elan system. You can change that. I ask you not to, because there's no way to change it back if you forget what it is. So I usually just tell people leave it at 1234. It's very easy to remember. It doesn't give anyone access to your system in any way, shape, or form to leave that password alone. So we're going to ignore everything in here with the exception of the TV channel groups. All the rest of them are videos for another day. So let's click on TV channel groups, and we'll see that we've got our user 1 and user3. Well, I'm going to go ahead and click on user3. And down at the bottom center, I see a rename. So I'm going to go ahead and use my keyboard, and I'm going to properly spell that as user2. And I did that in order to put user2 in order Otherwise, if I create a new one, it would be user 1, user 3, user 2. Now I do want a true user 3, so I'm going to go down to the bottom center left and press new and type in user 3. Now, this was kind of designed with the idea that everybody would have their own favorites page and you just select your favorites on your favorites page. But if you do want to go back to the older pre-Elan 8.0, where they had like the news and the sports and the music, you can create the groups like that. It's 100% your preference, and you can add and take away from those any way you want. So in this case, let's assume that maybe user 1 is a his, user 2 is a hers, or vice versa, and user 3 is a kid's, or user 4 is a guest, or whatever. Let's click on user 1 and that highlights it. Anytime I want to add a favorite, I simply click on the channel and it highlights blue, back to that theme. If I don't want that channel to be a favorite anymore, I unhighlight it. Now those user 1, 2, and 3s will only show up on our favorites pages if we have one or more selections. Otherwise, they get rid of them because there's nothing there to click on. There's no favorites. There's no reason to have it, so it just gets rid of it. We are going to add some favorites. We want them to show up, but I don't want Fox Channel 9 KTTM. I want Fox HD. So let's go ahead and ignore the first channels, and let's scroll down to the 600s, and let's get to 609, which is already been highlighted. Fox, ESPN, ESPN2, 623. Now I did delete the other user 2 and created a new user 3, but under user 2, you'll notice that as I switch users, those aren't highlighted because we did not want those to be favorites for that user. But if I scroll down a little bit, I did create this as maybe a kids channel with Disney, Nickelodeon. Those are selected. User 3, we don't know what favorites we want for them yet, so let's go ahead and just ignore user 3 and not make any selections. We'll come back to that in a minute. In the upper left-hand corner, we've got the Elan icon, which is also the exit button. If we click on that, it gets us out. Let's press on media, and let's click on embed to open the embed room. And if we go to favorites, back to where we were, we've got the user 1 and the user 2. If we select those, it'll show us the different user groups. And in the upper right hand corner, if we select that little clock, it'll give us an all channels guide, just the channels for user 1 and just the channels for user 2. Well, user 3 came home and decided to add some favorites. So let's add some favorites for user 3. We're going to press the 3 lines in the upper left corner to get out. We're going to click on media to unselect him off of blue. And in the upper right or lower right, depending on your orientation, is the little cog icon. Let's press on that. Default password is 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's go to TV channel groups. Click on user 3 and let's make a selection. Let's just arbitrarily choose whatever. Let's choose the SD version of History Channel. In the upper left-hand corner, let's click on Elan to get out. Back into media, click on the words embed to get into the room, and go to favorites. Well, now we've added user 3 because we made one or more selections. In the upper right-hand corner with the little guide button, let's press him, and now there's all, user 1, user 2, user 3, and this does scroll depending on how many users you have so that you can get to all of your users. All right, that's fantastic. We have all of those things in there. That works great. How do we get it on our remotes, and how do we use it on our remotes? Every time you make one of these changes and add a new favorite page, the remotes will have to download these little icons right here. So that little history channel is an image, and we need that to be locally stored on the remote. So the remote is, every time you make a change here, the remote might download in order to download some data. It'll take a moment or two. And then once it's online, this is the older style HR200. It does have the touch screen, but it also has these 3 little buttons. Now the next time that you turn your zone on, and what you may have to do is actually press your media button and then select TiVo 1 or Dish 1 or Satellite 1, whatever you're watching, to refresh that page. So we would press media, or if the zone is on, we'd turn the zone, or the zone is off, we would then turn the zone back on. And the first thing you'll notice is a minor change on the touchscreen. In the event of TiVo, we would have touch screen buttons that are not part of the physical buttons. We'd have a TiVo button at the top. We'd have a plus and minus for thumbs up, thumbs down, etc. Well, on the bottom, that page is now going to be listed as new page, and it's going to shift everything up a little more to add that new page, and you'll have a left arrow and a right arrow. Those correspond to these hard button arrows. They're so low on the screen that they couldn't really get a thumb or a finger in there to press it. So they just tied those to the left, center, and right arrows. Now, if you press the left arrow, that's going to scroll to the left and go to the last page. If you scroll to the right, that's going to scroll to the, or press the right button, that's going to scroll to the right and give you the first page. Now, user 1, page 1, would be the first page. User 3 page, however many pages there are for user 3, would be the last page if we went from the left. Similarly, let's say we have 10 favorites selected for user 1. We would see user 1 1/2, meaning there's 2 pages for user 1. And then if we hit the right button again, we'd see user 1 2/2, meaning we're on page 2 and we'd only have 1 favorite. We'd press our favorite with our thumb on the screen, and that would take us to our favorite. We can also press and hold that particular favorite, and we'll get that guide information that comes up and gives us a little blurb about that particular guide. So that's if you press and hold the button on the screen, will pop up and give you the little guide information like on our phones. Now, if you've got the HR30, this is a slightly newer remote and it has a flat touchscreen. So there's no buttons that correspond to the things on the bottom. There'll actually be a left arrow, center arrow, and right arrow, and you can press it right on the screen to swap between the pages. So no arrows on this. They replace those with a light, kind of some favorites buttons up here, the light, the monitor, and the music, which I don't typically use, but we'll go over that on your particular system if they are in use. Otherwise, on the HR30, you'll use the left, center, and right buttons. Now you can press the center button. Let's say you've got 5 different users and they all have 2 or 3 pages favorites each, and it's really annoying to press the right button 17 times just to get to your favorite channel. Well, you can press the center button, or on the HR200, the center button, and it'll just give you a list of all the pages. User 1, 1-3, user 1, 2-3, user 1, 3-3, so on and so forth. And you can scroll down that list and select your user and your page to get to your favorites much quicker than pressing the right button, the right button, the right button. You get the idea. Unfortunately, however, on the HR10, which is a single room remote, it does not have the multi-room purpose. They don't have a left, center, and right arrow. They only have the one page flip function button. Now that page flip function button will have to be pressed to go to the right, starting at user 1, page 1 of however many, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many pages, and that will just cycle to the right. So it does get really annoying if you've got a lot of users with a lot of favorites pages in that regard, in which case it might be a little easier for you to set up your pages, your favorites pages, as sports pages, music pages, news pages, so on and so forth, just to minimize the amount of pages that you can do. And this one does not have the guide information press and hold like the other. Well, I take that back. If you press, so let's ignore the home, media, climate, and lighting. If you press the hard button for your Fox page and you press and hold it, it will bring up the little guide information that tells you what's on that channel currently, with the ability to change the channel to that. Otherwise, you just press the hard button associated with upper left is for the upper left button on the screen. They're not touch screens, so you have to hit the hard button to the left. And instead of 9 per page, you get 6 per page on the HR10s. The 200 and the 30 have 9 icons per page. The HR10 only has 6 icons per page. So there might be more pages if you've got more favorites, because there's only 6 out of 9 on this particular remote. And that's all there is to creating your favorites pages and having all of your favorites pages dynamically changeable and able to come in here and see what's playing on any of those pages and be able to select a page. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is you'll notice that Cartoon Network is kind of a black on black here, and for some people that's really annoying. You can't really tell what it is. There is a change that I can make in the programming which changes the color of the buttons, and I usually choose kind of a lighter gray theme for those buttons. The only downside is it doesn't just change the buttons in your favorites, it changes every button that is on your entire Elan interface. The guide button, favorite button, keypad button, all of these black buttons, they're all going to change color in order to satisfy these guys. Whereas on the remote and on this page, they have a white background, so it's not that big of a deal. In here, they're a button, and the button is by default black. So I can change that to a lighter gray, and you'll be able to see your favorites a lot more easy, but just know that it does have the caveat that it changes every single button in the entire program. That's going to change the buttons for your all off. That's going to change the buttons inside of your light dimmers. Any other pages where there is a physical button that is black, that is going to be a gray. So just be aware of that. Otherwise, that's all there is to setting up your dynamic favorites. Enjoy, and light those pages up with all your favorite channels to make it a lot easier.